Hi, I'm Sara Gutterman, CEO of Green Builder Media, and I'm here today with Bruce Green, Vice President of Sales from Fabral. So we are going to talk today about the Vision House Austin, which is a unique architect designed home in Green Builder Media's Vision House series that is intended to showcase climate responsive design, and that sustainability really begins with design. So talk a little bit about Fabral's products. You're kind of the first line of defense with respect to having climate responsiveness within the home.
And really nothing lends itself better to that than a metal roof. If you think about a metal roof, it's primarily composed or created from recycled material. The biggest portion of the metal roof, the largest percentage, is from recycled material. So the resources that you would use in a mining operation or in a steel production operation, you don't have to use. It's already been done. Additionally, at the end of its life cycle, it can all be recycled again. So you can use it again and again. It's a wonderful material for that. But when you're looking specifically at a roof, especially the one that you're building in Austin, the primary concern is the heat. It gets hot in Austin. So you want to be able to reflect as much of that heat as you can. A regular asphalt shingle roof, or some of the other roofs like the pitch roofs, they absorb heat and they hold it. If you use a metal roof and you get a reflective coating, most of the heat is then reflected away from your roof, making it a lot easier to cool your project.
So Bruce, you just touched on three really important elements that I want to dive a little bit deeper into. First is the recycled materials utilized in your roof. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It's much easier if you have an operation that takes the scrap that we create. We can take all of that and then remelt it and create new parts with it. So we didn't have to go mine the iron ore. Environmentally, making steel is not necessarily the best thing because of the smoke and everything that comes from that. It's much better if we can use recycled material. It's just easier and better for the environment. It's cheaper, plus you're not wasteful.
In terms of metal roofs and their ability to withstand these catastrophic events, whether those are wildfires or superstorms or hurricanes, can you talk a little bit about that aspect of resiliency in metal roofing?
You think about them as just the panels, but there's far more to that. How do you attach the panels to the structure? If you look at a traditional metal panel, and everybody thinks about running a fastener through the panel into the substrate to hold the roof on. But on metal roofs now, we have standing seam metal roofs where you do not create any hole in the envelope of the building. They use clips, and then the clips attach to the pans to hold them up. There's no better way to keep the water off the children than a trapezoidal standing seam metal roof. Now, when these roofs get big, they expand and contract with the heat. There's going to be what we call thermal movement. And we actually use clips that articulate, that move back and forth and up and down to take care of that ability for the panel to move. You think that a metal roof, when the wind blows, it comes under it and pushes it off, but that's not what happens. When it blows over it, it creates a suction and pulls it off. How do we mitigate that? So we tested different clips and different attachments and different levels of how far apart we would put the roof purlins to make sure we didn't do that. And the roofs changed. From 1992 to now, the roof systems are much more, they go through a wind event like that much better than they used to. Think about the durability during a hailstorm, or the durability in a big ice event, or a big rain event. There's nothing that can withstand the elements as well as the metal roof can.
Bruce, I know on the Austin project, we're going to be using some cool roof systems and reflective coatings and things like that. So can you talk a little bit about those?
They're coated with what we call galvalume, which is a mixture of zinc and aluminum. As long as they're not affected by outside influences like chemicals or something like that, these roofs will last for 40 or 50 years. That's with a bare galvalume roof. But if you take that galvalume roof and now you put a coating on it, and you put what you just talked about, the reflective coating, we have to reflect more of the heat instead of absorbing it. So there's no other roofing materials that you can use that will reflect the heat. Your house in Austin, as I was reading the design criteria the other day when I was reading about it, to have the highly reflective roof and then to have the space between the roof and the ceiling, like that shaded area, that's going to make so much difference in keeping that house cool. That's a wonderful design.
We really enjoy working with Peter Pfeiffer, who is considered to be one of the early pioneers of sustainable design here in the US. He's been doing this for a long, long time. And he really recognizes just those types of practices can make such a big difference on the performance of a home, the comfort of the home, and really being able to be climate responsive. Now, how is Fabral making your company climate responsive, not just your products?
Well, it's something we think about all the time when we're building out our supply chain, that we're making sure that we don't make unnecessary truck runs, that we make sure that the loads are, that we can source as much as we can locally, and that if we do have to move material, that the trucks are full, and always looking for better ways to get all of the parts that you need for a metal building there without generating any more loads than we can. And it's not just in order for us to not spend the money on the truck. That's what you would say, well, a company of course wants to do that. But it's bigger than that. We're all very aware that the earth is getting hotter and that we all have to do our part to look at things like that, to minimize the effect, to get closer to our customer, to get closer to the markets, to make sure we're all doing everything we can to minimize the impact we have by moving steel around the country.